Welcome to the Bear Sheep broadcast, a space for building stability, preserving legacy, and strengthening the communities we call home. I'm Khaliyah Heaven Barakhyahu, founder and president of Bear Sheet, and we have Hezekiah Baylor, a Richmond native and a board member for Bear Sheet, here joining us today. We represent a nonprofit organization based in Richmond, Virginia, and we're honored you're joining us today. Now, this show exists to have real conversations about homeownership, wealth building, family transitions, and the decisions that shape generations. At Bereshit, our mission is simple but powerful. We empower families to build lasting stability by providing holistic education and compassionate support in homeownership, wealth building, and end of life planning. We help individuals make informed decisions, preserve their legacy, and strengthen the communities they call home. To all our listeners, if there's a topic you want to discuss, you have some input you want to share, send us an email to info@bereshitcorporation.org. Again, that's info, at Bereshit, BRESHEET corporation.org. All right, so today we want to talk about investing. So let's start by Hezekiah. How are you doing today?
Everything's well and blessed. Thank you, Khaliyah. How are you?
Good. I'm doing blessed as well. Thank you. Thank you for
Mhm.
joining us today. So, in my talks this week and meeting different people, some of the questions that came up in light of the market, people are seeing a lot of houses available. They're getting a lot of mail, a lot of calls about selling property. And so I thought about let's talk today about how to get started in investing. Have you, I'm put you on the spot for a moment. Have you thought about
Yes, ma'am.
investing?
Yes, ma'am. I have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and maybe so in your thoughts about investing, or maybe even
Mhm.
people that you've encountered, what are some of the things that you thought about when you were thinking about investing?
Yes, ma'am. Um, I would say with all of the opportunities and information, my first investment, I guess the conversation started about okay, purchasing a home first, like having my first home. Um, a lot of my peers and colleagues, some of them have multiple properties. I never knew too much about, what it would take, to purchase not only just one home, but getting in the market of saying, how do I expand or build a wealth, let's say portfolio for myself and my family. So initially, it was more about uh, where do you start around purchasing another property and how do you begin that process. In some cases, you can't live in two places at one time,
Right.
but at the same time, I've heard about a colleague of mine, which you have met before. He was sharing with me purchasing property through the government as far as FHA programming. And in some cases, you have to live in the property for a certain amount of time, but yet you're getting the benefit of a low interest, low down payment type of program. Overall, uh, I've had questions about, do you purchase, a single family home and rent that, or a condo? Do you start, kind of small and build up? But also, where does that cash flow come from? In some cases, and I think you alluded to this, I think, going to get, if you can get one loan or one mortgage, if you're approved for one mortgage, you possibly get more than one.
Right.
Depending
Mm-hmm.
on how much you put down and your goals. So just if that's a thing, someone that has, I would say, the initial knowledge and information, foundational knowledge and information about, purchasing multiple properties or investing in multiple properties, that's something that I feel would take a little time understanding, more about finances and having the access to capital to be able to invest in multiple, properties per se.
Yeah, and you've said like a lot
Hmm.
of good information
Hmm.
in what you said, and we're
Hmm.
gonna get into some of that this
Okay.
episode, and maybe have to really divide it up
Yeah.
in a couple other broadcasts, because that is
Yeah.
some of the thoughts people have. One thing I heard in what you were saying is,
Hmm.
how do I have the money?
Hmm.
How do I get that
Hmm.
funding to invest? And
Hmm.
so many people,
Right.
you see them talking about, okay, rental properties, passive income, flipping
Hmm.
houses, building wealth through real estate. And in some of
Hmm.
the conversations, they said, "Well, how do I do that? Am I ready? Like, where do I start? Do I reach out about an FHA? Can I have multiple
Hmm.
mortgages, like you mentioned?" And for
Hmm.
some, it's just, you don't know how to start, or there may be like confusion of, well, can I manage multiple properties? I've heard about people
Hmm.
renting properties and the renters
Yes.
aren't that great. What do I do if the
Hmm.
renter doesn't pay? Like, there's so many things in there. But the way to start is putting out those questions like you did in those comments when you were thinking about it,
Hmm.
and getting some
Hmm.
information on where to
Yeah.
start. That you When you look, I know people are on social media a lot. Investing is
Hmm.
everywhere. Like, I've had conversations with people who are they're getting 10 and 20 emails and mailers saying, "We'll buy your home."
Mm. Yes.
You have this vacant, like, I get property, we see your name on this land, would you like to sell this property?
Hmm.
We can offer you
Yes.
good pricing. And but then you hear on the other side, well, if I have property and you're going to benefit from
Hmm.
it, well, maybe I want to benefit from it. Maybe, how do
Right.
I benefit from what I have? So there's so many different avenues you can go when you're investing. Do you already have something that you can already utilize, that you don't need to get a
Hmm.
loan on, that can start making you some money? Um,
Yes.
I've had clients reach out to me who have land, and they reach out and they
Hmm.
say, they want to sell the land that they have. And then they think
Hmm.
about, well, what about renting? Could I rent the
Right.
land? That's another
Hmm.
option.
Hmm.
Like, if you have land that you own free and clear, and it is not doing
Hmm.
anything, and but you want to keep it, but it's not making you any money, and you're paying those taxes all the time, have you thought about renting
Hmm.
it? So there are
Mm. Yes.
different things that there are different
Yes.
ways to start making money. So when you're
Hmm.
starting to invest, like before you even get into finding funding, and funding is very important, you'd want to think about, is this going to be under a business name? Am I going to get
Yes.
funding in my personal name? How is this going to affect
Hmm.
my personal credit? So there are
Yes.
LLCs and companies
Hmm.
created just so people can invest. There are trusts
Yes.
created so that it doesn't have to completely affect your personal income. So there are
Yes.
ways to structure different things where you can have your own personal mortgage, and you can invest in property and have another mortgage. Um,
Yes.
so let's talk about how you start. So, because I have
Hmm.
thought about, I have my husband and I talk about investing as well, and
Yes.
investing in properties, and I am pro people using real estate to build wealth, and maintaining and
Yes.
holding on to the real estate that they have, so they can create wealth for
Hmm.
themselves and for their future and for their offspring. So where do you
Yes.
start? Where do you start? So when I started about investing, one, we started looking at our finances, because you want to
Hmm.
make sure when you're investing, if you, especially if you're going to get a loan, or even if you're going to reach out to a commercial lender, or there's private money out there, many times they're going to look at your credit. It may not end up on your credit, but they're going to look on your credit. So when you're talking
Yes.
about investing and purchasing property, people need to go ahead and make sure they know what their credit looks like. And I think we talked about that before, a little bit of
Yes,
knowing
ma'am.
what your numbers are, knowing what they look like, opening up those bills. Don't just let them sit there, because wherever you are in your process, you can get to the stage of investing. So, some of the
Yeah.
things that we think about is your personal debt manageable? Can you manage the debt that you have now? Because in a worst case scenario, you may have some additional debt if that investment that you've invested in, if it's a rental, doesn't rent right away, if it's a house you're fixing up or flipping, if it doesn't sell right away, if you need to put money into whatever you have to make it in an investable piece of property. So, and more so, I'm
Mhm.
thinking about real estate because that's where my expertise, lies more in real estate. Of
Yes.
course, there's
Yes,
other
ma'am.
ways to invest, but if you're thinking about investing, you want to see how your personal debt is first. It's good to maybe even have a cushion. People sometimes use their 401ks. They use their retirement funds. They pool
Mhm.
money together as a family so that they
Yes.
can invest in property, which is something I think we were
Yes.
talking about, Hezekiah, not too long ago. I don't think families
Yes,
think
ma'am.
about that, like
Right. Yes.
coming together and saying, let's
Hmm.
put our money together. Everybody take a thousand
Yes.
dollars or $500.
Hmm.
Let's put it in a
Hmm.
fund, and then let's use that to invest so that we all can get
Yes.
dividends back. Why even get a loan if you don't have to?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And another thing, as you're talking, which you can kind of you talk about strategies now, like that could be a great strategy. Would be depending on if you're a homeowner, you have a good stable credit, and you have a lot of equity in your home. Can you take equity like a what is it called
Home equity loan?
a HELOC?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and take that money and put down on a new property. Is that even possible to do?
Yes,
Is
people do
that
that
something
as
you could
well.
do? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
They
Yeah.
will pull
Mhm.
right out of the equity that they have in their home to be able to
Mhm.
finance another property. I was talking to a few commercial lenders, right? So I was, people there are people
Mhm.
who are in all walks of life of investing, and I was asking the
Yes.
commercial lender, what do if somebody wanted to invest, let's say they wanted to buy a business or buy a building, and they want to get this big commercial loan. Now we're talking, well, it doesn't have to be that big, 500,000, a million. What do
Yes.
they have to do?
Mhm.
What do they have to look like on paper in order to do that?
Right.
And so he was the lender that I was talking to. He was telling me, well, one, we're going to need their financial statement. He says that if they want to buy, let's say they want to buy something for $1 million, they want that building for a
Mhm.
million dollars. They're going to at least have to
Mhm.
have 10% in liquidity, which means money in their accounts that they can pull from.
Mhm.
And he said they're going to
Right.
at least have to have that other 900,000 to a million in assets. So
Mm.
that
Okay.
commercial lender for that building is not going to lend. Now, everyone is not the same. I'm not saying every commercial lender, this is their strategy, but just something to think about.
Yes.
They're going to want to look at your assets. Which means
Yes.
your house, your equity. Do you have other rentals, other businesses? If you want to get these big, commercial loans. So I say
Mhm.
if you're just starting in investing, let's start smaller. Think
Yes.
about that house. If you want to get into the real estate arena, think about that house that maybe is under 200,000, right? That you can pull money together or even get a small loan or pull from a home equity line or a retirement fund or something like that. And so start small and then get a loan for that, work on that, and then build yourself up to getting something bigger. But yes, it was just something I thought about when you said that. But yes, you can look at your home equity line of credit. There's all different things. The key is you don't have to start big, start small. check your finances, make sure your credit is good. Now, if you're going to need to get a loan, you want to have that good credit. But if you are coming together with other people, then you don't have to have the best credit because no one is pulling your credit. So, some things to think about are, do I have, friends? There are groups out there that there's this ladies group of investors who ladies get together from around the United States, and they come together, they pool their money, they take that money and they go in and they invest in property. And I'm pretty sure they're not the only group that does that. There's crowdfunding platforms out there where if you just want to get your feet wet and you maybe have a little bit of money just to put in and get started, you can invest your money into the crowdfunding. And then what they do is they find good projects that you can invest in, that your money can be used for. And then you get a return from that. Just getting your feet wet. You're not taking on the big liability of maybe going out there and buying a house or going out there and buying a big piece of property, but you're getting the opportunity with other people to invest. I always say when you're going to invest, the question you should ask yourself is why? Why are you investing? Especially in real estate, you want to have a focus. Like, is it is this a long-term rental income? Is this a flip? Are you doing something because you want to make profit right away? Is this something that you're doing for retirement planning? Is there a long-term goal? You want that passive type income. Are you trying to create a legacy? My daughters, they we have daughters, and we would love if we could have them to have a house that they could, when they get older, they could get rental income from, one house for each of our daughters. I heard someone say this. They said one of the reasons that they were getting a property was because they wanted it to leave to their children. And I thought that was such a good idea. If you could have investment property and you can pay it off and put renters or put tenants in there, and then your children can start getting that additional income. Are you trying to support your own income? You want to, like that retirement planning, you want that residual income. Maybe it's through fixing property and selling it and investing that money in something else that you get, or putting it in a 401k so you have it for retirement. There's so many reasons to invest. The key thing is to define why you're investing. What are your goals? And it's about you. It's not about what other people think, or I just want investing so I can say I invested. You want something that's going to help you and your family. So, while you are defining your investment goal, then you want to come up with a plan. So, if you are thinking that you want to get property, then and you're going to need to get a loan, maybe you don't have people to crowdfund with or to put money together. And if you do decide, whether it's family or friends, to pool your money together, please make sure you have a document that outlines everything. Because when things are going good, they're going good. But if something changes, somebody's family dynamic changes, and they want their money out of that fund, you need to have rules in place. This just lets everyone know what is expected. Have an attorney look at it and make sure it makes sense for everyone. Everyone signs on it, and then you are secure if something changes. Once you've decided what you want to do, if you are deciding that, my finances look good. I have a little money or some money saved in the bank. I have a 401k or a home equity that I can pull from if I need to. Then decide, what do you want to do? Do I want to have rental income? You don't have to be the landlord. Some people are like, I would like rental income, but I do not want to be a landlord. Well, there are property management companies out there who, once you get the property, they will help you. They'll help manage the property. They'll collect the rent. They'll make sure those tenants, if they have maintenance issues, they'll do all those things. So you're not left to have to do it yourself. Or what about a flip? Are you thinking about getting it on the market? Because there are a lot of houses right now coming up on the market where they need some work. They may be vacant. Sadly, people are going through foreclosures and the banks are seizing properties. Well, we never want to see someone have to go through something like that. And we have an episode talking about foreclosures and avoiding them. But it does happen. So if it does happen and you're on the investment side, then that may be an opportunity for you to get a house at a decent price. Go in there if it's not in the best condition, fix it up, and sell it and make some money off that property. People are always going to need homes and they're going to need good housing. Now, if you do decide to get a house and fix it and, fix it up, please get a good contractor, a licensed contractor. I've heard many stories of people going in there and they're fixing up houses. You want to fix up a house like you'd want to live in it. You don't want to cut those corners, because even though we are about creating wealth, we are about creating good habitats for other people. So don't cut those corners. Go ahead and get a licensed contractor in there, especially when you're dealing with very important things: structure, foundation, electrical, plumbing, and turn around a good product. And if you're on the side when you're buying these properties, do your homework. Do your home inspections. Sometimes home inspections can look like you getting a home inspector out there who will look at the different things, or getting licensed contractors to come in and look, getting a roofer to come in and look at the roof, getting an electrician to check the wiring. So you don't necessarily have to get just a general home inspection. You can get those people who specialize in those areas to come out and look at the different things. Make sure the foundation's good. What does it look like in the crawl space? These are just some of the things that you want to look at when you're getting an investment property, because sometimes there are hidden things that you didn't even think of. And sometimes those things are the cost of buying a property. So do your due diligence. Figure out what type of property you're looking for, what's your end goal, and then learn the things that are needed to properly purchase. Now, before you purchase, you want to establish a budget, a purchase price. So you do want to talk with some type of lender, or decide that, you're going to pull from your retirement fund. You're going to pull from the home equity in your home. You may want to sell something and use some of that equity. Think about your numbers. Your numbers are very important. When you are purchasing a property, there's the purchase price. But besides from the purchase price, or in addition, there's the down payment. What's your down payment going to look like? On some commercial type loans, you have to bring 20%. On some, if you're doing cash, you may not have to do that big of a down payment. You're going to have to put some money down, but you don't have to do the down payment. Then you'll have closing costs. You'll have closing costs on when you purchase the property, and you will have closing costs on when you sell the property. So get those numbers together. Talk with that title company and that lender, if you're using a lender, and find out what those fees are. What are the fees for pulling money out of your retirement fund? Find that out. And can you put money back in once you pull it out? So these are numbers you want to know. Then if you're buying a property, what are the repairs going to look like? How much are those repair costs going to be? This is why it's very important when you are looking at a property to have a contractor go in there with you, or a home inspector, so they can really tell you what they see going on with the property and how much it's going to cost for you to repair. And then add 10%, because there is always something hidden. I don't want to say it has to happen, but just something comes up. There's an additional fee you didn't think about. There's an additional something that needs to be repaired on the property. You want to have that additional money, that 10%, set aside as a contingency, just in case. Then you have property taxes. What are the property taxes on the property? If I have to hold that property longer, because sometimes properties can sell quickly. Sometimes it may take longer for the repairs, especially on your first property. And then you have to look at how long are you going to hold it. So don't forget about those property taxes and insurance. How much is the insurance? You have to insure. Once you take over that property, you want insurance. You want to make sure if something that property burns down, you have insurance to regain your loss. Then maintenance. One of the things people call it like holding costs. Once that property is ready to be sold, you still have to keep those utilities on. That electric has to stay on. You want water on, those type of things. So what's it going to cost for the maintenance to upkeep that property? Getting the lawn mowed, making sure it's safe, maybe setting up a security system so that the property stays safe and maintained. And then if it's vacant, then going over there, having people stop by, because just because you have a property and it is now ready to sell or rent, until there's someone in there, there's a risk of someone coming by there, doing some vandalism to the property. You want to be aware of all these things. And these are costs and times that you want to factor in to the property. And then property management. If you don't want to manage that property yourself, if you're going to rent and you're going to have tenants in there, then you want to put in that price of a property manager, which could be anywhere between 7 to 10% of the rent. When you're thinking about if a property is cash flowing, like especially if you're renting, even if you're not renting, you want to make sure you're making a profit on these properties. Your cash flow is not just your rent, minus the mortgage. It's the rent minus everything. Your profit isn't just that money that you're taking away from the sale after the purchase price is paid for. It's everything, renovation, taking everything out and seeing what you're going to make from the property. So knowing your numbers are very important. And then there are a lot of spreadsheets out there that you can put in for simple calculations. There are one of the things that helped me too were their investor groups. So if you go to Meetup, you can type in investing, put in your area, and there are groups out there who this is what they do. They give you classes, they talk, they network, and they talk about investing and deals out there. And this may be a good place for you to go and just sit there and listen. Talk with some of them. How do you figure out how much you pay for? That's a good purchase price. What numbers am I looking for? Listen to the deals they have going. Listen to some of their ups and downs, and because every deal that's done for a lot of people isn't fantastic. You're not making 40, 50,000. Sometimes I've seen people make hundreds on deals. It's not always like that. Sometimes there's some unforeseen things and you end up barely breaking even, but you broke even. Or sometimes you may have to learn a lesson and you end up not making any money off the property. So there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of things to consider. Well, I want as you leave this episode to think about what your first steps can be if you would like to invest. Pull your credit. Start an investment savings account. Analyze some properties without buying so that you can make sure that you know what to look for when you're ready to buy. Now, as we come to a close today, if today's conversation helped you in any way, share it with someone you love. If it brought up questions or you'd like to share your stories, visit us at bearsheetcorporation.org or email us at info@bearsheet, BRESHEET corporation.org, or call us at 844-405-3924 for resources or support. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. This is Bear Sheet, building stability, preserving legacy, and strengthening the communities we call home. Join us next time as we continue conversations that help families move forward with clarity, confidence, and dignity.